Should you challenge your 2020 Seneca County tax assessment? It's reappraisal time. It's reassessment time. Welcome back to Making Sense of Real Estate. Bill Jones, Remax Unlimited Results Realty. And my phone has been ringing off the hook. Phone calls, text to my cell phone, to the office line. So the county auditor, Julie Adkins, they are required here. This might be a little long here. I'm going to try to make this short. We try to keep these just a few minutes. We are live. If you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A here. We'll get into more detail here later this week then as well. But the reassessments have gone out. So a piece of paper looks like this come in the mail. Do you want to challenge this? We get this call all the time. Hey, Bill, hey, we get this assessment. We don't agree with this value. We think our home is being taxed too high. I'll get into some specifics, but the short answer for the most part is, and I'm certainly no tax attorney. I'm not any kind of an expert in that realm. I'm just going to give you my advice, my opinion here, and our knowledge. I've been selling real estate for 15 years now, continually full time. We've only had a couple instances where this has worked out, but again, it's worth the discussion. So we went straight to the horse's mouth. We called Seneca County Auditor right over here, this building right behind us in our office. You go marching into that office, they'll give you some answers. We can't do that now, but give them a phone call. They're very polite. They'll walk you through the entire process, but we'll dive a little bit into that now. And we talked to an appraiser here, a guy 21 years in the business. Again, we're going right to where you need to get the answers. So, and I'm going to give them to you. So you get this, and if you look at your assessment, there's going to be several things on there. Your property address, obviously, what their opinion, and an appraisal is an opinion of value. So the current classification of your house, A, B, C, or D, what do they feel is the fit and finish of the home? Is it a recent renovation? Is it a new home? So if you're a brand new home, you should be class A. If it hasn't been renovated in 30 years, 40 years, something like that, you're probably a C or a D. It's going to lower that tax value then, or what that number is. So I see we've got a couple things coming in here. So again, if you guys have any questions, let us know. And the current appraisal price. So good news is the appraisal price is based upon what the auditor has assessed a value to your home. Almost always, and I've talked about the years I've been in the business, been selling for 15 years. Only in a couple instances can I ever think of where the tax value that Seneca County Auditor has put on that property, that we have not sold the home for more than what that is. People will say, I want to challenge this number. So I would say, Bob and Betty homeowner, here we are, just to give you some numbers. You think we could list your home for $150,000. We'd put it up for sale. We feel that's the fair market value for your home. The auditor only has you valued at $100,000 or $125,000 or something along that line. So what is an appraiser going to look for? So we called an appraiser, guy we trust. We went into more detail. And again, from talking to the auditors, you need an actual appraisal done by a licensed appraiser to challenge that. They look at a lot of the same information we do. Again, it's opinion of value, but they look for recent sold properties that they can comp against, just like they would any kind of appraisal. So again, talking to the auditor's office, they said you would want an appraisal for tax purposes. So you can get an appraisal for a refi, a purchase, or something like that. So for tax purposes, that's going to cost you approximately about $400. It might be a simpler form, but to have that appraisal done, the appraiser is going to go out there and give you their opinion of value. That's likely going to come in at close to like what a real estate agent is going to, real estate pro is going to advise you. We're going to list your home for $150,000, or it's going to be something close to that. So the argument is, how do you walk into the auditor's office and say, I'm going to challenge this number? We have an appraisal for $150,000. You only have this listed at $100,000, but we have this appraisal for $150,000. Well, you've just opened up the door. Then they can look at that number. So the process to do that doesn't actually start till the first of the year. The board of revision, that's what you want to do. So the appraisal would want to be done from that time frame for tax purposes, and it would go to this board of revision, and that's where you can go in there and plead your case. You can make your argument. I don't feel I'm being taxed properly for what my home is worth, and you can make that argument. So if you have that appraisal done or have that reassessment done, you're kind of opening Pandora's box. They may say, well, we didn't realize you had a finished basement or the extra bedroom and bathroom and things like that, the finished patio out back, things that they're going to assess value on. So I don't know that it would necessarily hurt your case. Our general go-to with that is just kind of having this discussion and walking through it. I'm not going to tell somebody whether they should or shouldn't do it. So after you talk to the board of revision, that number may adjust. Have your taxes gone up? I've had this conversation a couple of times too, where an individual feels like their number has gone up. However, you actually look at the history, and I'll show you here then too. You can go to the auditor's site. They got a great site. A lot of information there. I'm on this 10 times a day probably. SenecaCountyAuditor.org will take you to their site then, and you'll see right there 2020 values now available. I'm not going to get into the using of the page here right now. There's a lot there. We've covered it before. We'll cover it in more detail later, but fantastic site, a lot of good information there. So where do they get these numbers from? I'm going to show this here. So again, we go to the Ohio Department of Taxation. You wonder where your real estate taxes are going. And I got some more good info here. Bear with me here. So real estate, or the real property tax in Ohio, is Ohio's oldest tax. Don't know if you knew that or not. It's been an ad valorem tax, meaning based upon value, since 1825. So your taxes are based upon value. And again, Seneca County, they're pretty generous on those numbers to us taxpayers. We'll get back to what the number is. So the department's tax equalization division helps to ensure uniformity and fairness in property taxation through its oversight of its appraisal work of local county auditors. According to state law and department's rule, auditors conduct a full reappraisal of real property, that's your real estate, every 6 years, and update the values in the third year following each reappraisal then. So again, for more information, go down here and I'll show you a couple things where you might be able to save a few dollars here, but we'll come back to that. So that number is based upon their value, and the value is that goes either by township or goes by neighborhood, and they call that a mass appraising. So it's not what your typical appraisers are going to do, where they would go and value your home versus the neighbor's selling home. It's going to be the mass value. So they look at the best property in the neighborhood or in the township, and the not worst, but the lowest value number, and you kind of fall into that ballpark there. So if somebody's building some big nice homes in your neighborhood, in your township, unfortunately it's probably going to raise your taxes a little bit, because it's a mass appraisal number. So it's not necessarily on an individual basis. It is and it isn't, but they go by that mass number. So what that does, and if your number has gone up, is that because of your home's value? Is it not just, it could be from a school levy, a reassessment, a replacement, things like that, a new tax, maybe something's happened with the schools or something in your township, a certain assessment that's been on there. So it might not necessarily be your home's value. I've went back and looked, and again, if you go to their site, you can look at what that is. Past years, I've just had this conversation several times in the last day or two, where the current tax value is actually less than what it was 2018, 2017. So maybe the number hasn't gone up. Maybe the value's gone up, but maybe your tax number, what you're paying in, hasn't gone up. So what you can do to help with numbers, and this is only in certain circumstances, would be your homestead exemption. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail now. We've already been pretty long here. A CAUV, again, more for agricultural, if you have oil and gas, and things like that. And we've covered these before. We'll go into more detail with them then too. But those may be some things that might help you with your value, especially the homestead. Makes a pretty big difference. So should you fight the auditor's office? Should you go over there and try to make that happen? You're going to have to make that decision. But from talking to the appraiser, and in my experience, both sold a lot of properties, they've appraised a lot of properties, and very, very rarely is that number going to go down with you going over there to do that. Then doesn't mean it can't happen, but you need a full-blown appraisal. You need to take it to there, argue your case. It's again an opinion of value, their opinion of value, the appraiser's opinion of value, and your opinion of value to try to justify where that's going to come in there. So if you go over there, you open up that box, it may or may not help you. I've rarely ever seen it actually help in that instance. There are a couple of circumstances where it has made a difference. But again, it's typically always going to be lower. Seneca County is great as that fact. Again, if you're selling a home for 150, the tax value is probably going to be 20, 30% less than what that is. And that's the number you're being taxed on. So if you got any questions, let us know. We'll continue this discussion here. We'll have a couple more interviews coming up, kind of going over this, but we're getting a lot of calls about it. I really wanted to kind of discuss this and go over it with everybody, but you should go from there. Let us know if you have any questions. Oh, I've got some great resources here. Right below there, you'll see a couple of links to the pages I've shown, Seneca County Auditors, and then also the Ohio Department of Taxation, that page then too. And we've also got our webpage on there then too, 419homesearch.com. Sign up for a market review and kind of go from there. So let us know. We will keep on going here. If anybody's got any questions,